Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 344 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is never quit. Our quote of the day comes to us from Chuck Aaron. Never quit, never give up, fly to the end. If you are looking to bring some more positivity into your school, company, or team, shoot me a message at chris@noquitliving.com, and we would love to help. And please don't forget to grab yourself a copy of our book, The Positivity Tribe, wherever books are sold. I had an absolute blast speaking with William Branum from Naked Warrior Recovery. As a 26-year Navy SEAL veteran, it was an honor having him on our show. And as an added bonus, if you are currently using any of the Naked Warrior Recovery products, or if you are interested in trying them for the first time, head on over to nw-recovery.com and use the discount code NOQUIT20 to receive 20% off of your purchase. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Will, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
It's awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. First question I ask everybody is, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
I try to do that every day. And I feel like if there's just a why for anyone, a mission in life, it should be to positively influence people. Like I don't know of any other reason to have a business or a reason to have a mission other than to positively influence people. You know, that's kind of my thought about it.
I couldn't agree more, but the cynical side of me just wonders why some people don't get after it like that. I've done some research on you, and we have some common people in the podcasting world, and so I know that you were going to answer it in some way, shape, or form. So as the theme and the title of our podcast is No Quit Living, I was curious if you yourself have either a no quit story or perhaps a really challenging time personally or professionally where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
I have a lot of failures. And can I give two? They're very different, but they're both really about not quitting, or they're never giving up or whatever. So one of them is I joined, once upon a time, many moons ago, about 150 years ago, I wanted to become a Navy SEAL. And so this was way before like anyone even knew what a Navy SEAL was, really. Like there were no books, there were no movies, there was no internet back then. We barely even had cable TV. Not to say that I'm old. I'm just older than some people. And so I was in the Boy Scouts and I heard about, I always knew I wanted to be a commando or a ninja. And I'm still trying to figure out how to do really both of those. And then someone told me, well, what about a Navy SEAL? I'm like, well, what do they do? It's like, well, they do all the stuff that all the other like commandos do, but they also swim underwater and they have, they work in smaller groups. I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to be that. So one day the Navy recruiter called me and said, why don't you come on in and let's talk about becoming a SEAL and a fighter pilot. So I went in, watched a cheesy movie about Navy SEALs recruiting video. It was really cheesy. And then I joined the Navy. Actually, I joined the Navy in what's called the delayed entry program. So I was in it was the summer before my senior year in high school. So I knew as soon as I graduated, 4 weeks later, I was off to boot camp. So I went off to boot camp. I went off to this technical school that you have to do when you join the Navy to become, in order to advance your rank in the Navy. So to become more senior. You can't just go in and be a SEAL. They didn't have that option back then. They have it now, but they didn't have it back then. And so I joined the Navy. I went to boot camp. I went to this technical school. I actually failed the SEAL screening test in boot camp. And we were talking kind of before the show about, getting up early, and I'm not a morning person. But so I failed it the first time. I did great on the swim. After the swim, you do push-ups, and I didn't really train at all. I didn't really understand training. I was like, how hard can it be? Is really my mentality through most of my career. And I've found out that if you don't prepare, it's pretty tough. Life can be pretty hard, especially when you want to do hard things. But so Anyway, I had the opportunity to take the screening test again in this technical school. It was 6 months long, and but I didn't. I was like, I'll take it more towards the end. I'm getting in better shape now. I'm working on my push-ups and my pull-ups, and my sit-ups, and I think my run is probably okay, and my swim is okay. So, and then we were about 4 weeks from graduating. I still hadn't taken the test, and then it came time to pick orders. And the guys who had taken the screening test, who had passed it, their order said they were going to go to Buds. I still had not gone out and taken the screening test after I failed it that first time in boot camp, because you had to get up at like 4 a.m. to like go across the base. And like, it was like winter, like in Waukegan, Illinois. It is cold. I don't like the cold either. Apparently I'm a fair weather frogman, and I will not argue with that any day of the week. But, so I didn't take the screening test. And then it came time to pick orders, and there was a school in Virginia Beach that was attached to a ship, but I didn't care about the ship. I was not planning on going to the Navy, like Navy. And so I took orders to the school, and I figured I would go to the school for 4 more months. I would get in better shape. Then I would take a screening test and go to Buds. That was a tactical error that almost cost me my entire SEAL career, because when I took that school, that obligated me to go to this ship in Yokosuka, Japan for 24 months. Obligated, no questions. I was like, well, what if I fail out of the school? They said, it doesn't matter. You're still going to go to that ship in Yokosuka, Japan, because you took these orders. Okay, so actions have consequences. I'm learning very quickly now. Or inaction also has consequences. So I go to the ship, and then in the Navy, you have a detailer. It's a guy that tells you where you're going to go next, your next command. And so it's customary to call your detailer 9 months before your orders are up, just to start having some dialogue with them. And so I called my detailer. I was in Yokosuka, Japan. He was in Washington, D.C. And I called him up and I said, hey, I'm planning on dropping a package to go to Buds. And he was like, that's great. You can drop a package, but I will not release you to go to Buds because you're too critical to the Navy. And I said, well, I joined the Navy to be a SEAL. He's like, I don't care. You're too critical to the Navy. I'm like, well, what if I get out? He's like, okay, then get out. So because I took that 4-month school, I was working on a brand new to the Navy, a new missile launcher that shot Tomahawk missiles. And so there were not very many of us. So I was critical to him. And so he was not going to release me. And I went and I passed I failed the SEAL screening test a second time. No one knows that except for me and you and whoever else I've told about it. And then I beat, there was a bunch of people that took the test at that time. And I was in pretty good shape. But I would think I was a little too cocky. And so I crushed the swim, I crushed the push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups. And there were 11 other guys taking the test with me. And I was the only one that wanted to be a SEAL. The other guys wanted to be a diver or an EOD guy. And so I took the test. I beat everyone on all the numbers. I beat everyone and on the run. So, on the SEAL side is the only people that have to run in long pants and boots for the 1.5 mile run. I beat everyone on that event as well. But when I came across the finish line, I was like, I got this. And I was just kind of and I didn't make the time by 11 seconds or something like that, because it was I was like, oh, I'm beating everyone. Of course I'm going to pass. And so I failed again. And then I took it the third time that I took it. I passed it without any problems because I didn't take any chances. But so even though I had passed everything, my detailer and I sent everything into get accepted. And I was told, no, on that side of it. And everyone said, your detailer has to release you. So I had letters of recommendation. I was doing everything right. And everyone said, no, you're not going to go. So then the chief of naval operations came to my ship in Yokosuka, Japan. And so this is the most senior guy in the Navy. So the only people who are senior to him are the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States. So he's the most senior guy in the Navy. And he came to my little ship, teeny tiny ship in Yokosuka, Japan, and asked if anyone had any questions. And I raised my hand. I said, yeah, I joined the Navy to be a SEAL. I think I deserve a chance to go. My detailer won't let me go. And so I think I deserve a chance to go. And then he turns to my commanding officer and says, is he a good guy? And my commanding officer said, yeah, he was a sailor of the quarter this quarter. So he turns back to me and he says, you'll be in the first class after your PRD, which is planned rotational date, which was 4 weeks later. And after that, I went off to buds. I had many failures in buds, but kind of going back to what your actual question was, when I retired from the Navy, I didn't really want to retire. I was in complete denial. In the Navy, in the SEAL teams, I had an awesome team that surrounded me. I had an awesome mission. I had peers, I had support, I had income, I had everything that I could possibly want and desire out of life. And then after 26 years of service, the Navy says, okay, see you later. And as soon as I walked out that door, I no longer had a mission. I no longer had a team. I no longer had a purpose. I no longer had anything to do. I no longer had income. And not only did my income go to almost zero, my expenses went way up because now I have to provide all sorts of other stuff. And so that was a really deep, dark part of my life. Not only do I have that going on, I also have what I call baggage. I don't call it PTSD or anything else. I call it baggage. And some of it is from work stuff. And some of it is from, we'll just call it toxic relationships that I've been a part of. And, the way that I would go to sleep at night is I would drink glasses of vodka rocks just to turn the noise off in my head, all that negative self-talk, all that negative nonsense. And that's the only way that I was able to go to sleep. And so that was I would say a pretty dark point of my life. I never wanted to stop living, but I was stuck in a loop of like, I don't know how to get out of this. I want to get out of it, but I don't know how. But I guess it's also worth mentioning that my father also took his own life. So maybe there's some genes going on there. I have no idea of depression or anything like that, but I'd never thought of myself as depressed in any way, shape, or form. But I knew that I was stuck in a bad loop and I needed to get out of it. So yes, I have definitely been in a bad place where it was very hard to recover from.
I appreciate you expanding on that, and want to thank you for your 26 years of service. And I think what you talk about, not the specific baggage to what you had, but that end of a career or end of one thing into the other, I think is a very dark place for different people. Obviously, athletes and things like that have crazy, difficult times and stories.
Yeah.
But maybe a difficult question, but was there one specific person or concept that really helped change for you into those dark days into what you're doing now?
So there were a couple things. So one was I tried to surround myself with people who I aspired to be like more again. So in the SEAL teams, it's awesome because you have like I said, you have an awesome team and an awesome mission. So what's great about it is I am pushing, the guys below me and the guys above me to perform at a higher level. You know what? That's what they're doing to me also. The guys above me, the most junior guy at the team, is pushing me to perform better because a lot of it is just like internal drive of like, I'm not going to let him beat me, or I'm going to talk so much smack if me, the old guy, beats you, the new guy. And so that drives me to perform better. And so when I got out, I didn't have that anymore. I mean, I live on a rock in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's, I love surfing. I love things like that, but getting, and that also helped me find some peace, but it was only temporary. Just like the alcohol would like mask that, noise in my head, but that's temporary and it has negative side effects. And it can just drive you down the drain. But the one modality that helped me was CBD. And, CBD isn't like a magic pill. But what happened is let's see, how do I explain this? So water boils at 212 degrees. And with all the baggage and stress and anxiety and nonsense that I had going on in my head, I was living at like 210 degrees. And so when I started taking CBD, it was from a friend of mine who gave me a bottle because I was interested in it. I'd heard about it, but I wasn't going to take it while I was in the military because I didn't know anything about it. But as I took it over about a 3 or 4 week period till I ran out of that bottle, what I didn't notice like any big changes, not like rainbows and unicorns and fairies and like light coming down on me. You take a little dropper and like, la, angels are singing. It's not like that at all. You don't really feel anything. It's not like, alcohol where you get a buzz, or THC where you get a high. I've never tried THC, so I can only speak hypothetically about it. But what I noticed is that needle went from like 210 degrees to 208 to 205 to 200 to 190, 180. Like maybe I like ended that first bottle at around 180 degrees. And something else that I know, so it just took me longer to hit that boiling point, to hit that like steam where I'm like, my fuse just got longer. So and the other thing that happened is I'm 100% disabled through the VA for a good reason. I've been beat up pretty hard. I wake up, like getting up in the morning is pretty difficult for me sometimes, just like from the aches and pains and some of the other stresses that I have. And so a lot of those pains, they're still pain. It's just not as sharp pain. Like some of them were like super sharp pain, and now they're much duller pain. So I still have the pain. I still have the injuries. They just hurt less. And I still have stress. I still have anxiety. It's just less. And it takes longer for those things to really affect my life negatively. And so I stopped taking CBD. Things started coming back. So I tried to take another brand of CBD, and I got, some pretty good results. Fortunately, the brands, based off what I know now about CBD, they were pretty good brands. And so I was at like a business conference once upon a time. After that, I was very interested in the CBD industry because it's helping to positively change my life. And I met someone in the industry, and really I wanted to work for her because she knew about CBD and I wanted to learn more about it. And so she's like, well, why don't you just start your own company? I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I've been in the military. She's like, you're a Navy SEAL. Why don't you just suck it up and start your own company? So she pretty much called me out on the carpet and said, go figure it out. And so I did. I went and figured it out, and I started my own company, Naked Warrior Recovery. And, to help, veterans and first responders and everyone else in the world recover from stress and anxiety and pain, and help with sleep and things like that.
And I got to ask the name Naked Warrior Recovery. I've heard you share it in different ways, but if you could just briefly share it quickly with our listeners.
So before I even go into that, I'd said CBD helped me. CBD is a modality. It's not a magic pill. It doesn't like perform miracles, but it is it's a modality that helped me. And some people take CBD and like, it doesn't do anything. Well, like really take a true, honest picture of what your life is right now, and then what it is in 30 days, and tell me what it looks like. So, but the Naked Warrior Recovery is the Naked Warrior is the former is the predecessor to today's Navy SEAL. Naked Warrior was, if you've ever seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, that first 20 minutes of the onslaught of Normandy, the assault force crossing that beach. The Navy, before that happened, the Navy went out and found and asked for volunteers that had demolitions experience. And then these guys just sort of figured things out, where they swam so they got in these little rubber boats from the big Navy ships, went in a couple hundred yards off the beach, got in the water, swam into the beach, did reconnaissance with these like slates. They just like looked around. They were wearing just pretty much just like some little teeny tiny swim shorts, a K-bar knife, and a spins and a mask. And they had a rock with on a string that had knots every 6 feet, which 6 feet is a fathom, and that's how you measure water on Navy charts or on nautical charts. And so these guys would swim into the beach. They would take reconnaissance of like where bunkers were, where obstacles were, what good lanes of assault would be. And they would take these notes, and then they would get back into the water, and then they would spread out about 25 yards apart. They would measure the depth of the water, mark it down on their slate. And then when everyone had their sounding, their depth, then they would dive down. They would look for obstacles underwater. And if they found something, they would swim about 25 yards. They would come up, and they would mark where that obstacle was on their slate. And then they would do it again. And they would do 3,000 to 5,000 yards of beach a night, which is a tremendous amount of work. And go back to the ship. And then they would take all the intel that they had and turn that into basically the plan to assault Normandy. And then hours before the assault on Normandy, these guys would go back in. They would put demolition charges on all the obstacles. They were clearing obstacles on the beach to create these lanes of assault. And, then as the assault force launches from the beach, these guys are also taking machine gun fire from the beach while they're down there trying to put on demo charges and things like that. And And as the assault force is coming in, they blow all the demo, and clear the lanes, and then they get out of the way, and then the assault on Normandy happened. Then they decommissioned this team, and then fast forward a couple years to the island campaign in the Pacific. Marines are like running on the beach. They would the landing craft would hit a barrier reef, which they didn't know was there. The Marines would run off thinking they were in 3 feet of water. They would drop off into 30 feet of water on the other side of that reef and drown. So then the Navy recommissioned those teams to be underwater demolition teams. And that was the predecessor of today's Navy SEAL. So in 1962, JFK, said, because these guys were doing, work from the rivers in Vietnam and being very successful, JFK said, you're no longer a UDT's underwater demolition team. You're now U.S. Navy SEALs. So the Naked Warrior is the predecessor to today's Navy SEAL. So it's just a little bit of heritage of my background, but also, we're all warriors, all of us. It doesn't matter what our occupation is. If we're a stay-at-home mom, if we're a real estate agent, if we are a CEO of an organization, if we're just, Joe blue collar worker, we're all warriors because we all go through some sort of adversity in our life. We all have some sort of internal conflict or external conflict that we have to deal with. And a lot of times in the SEAL teams, when we go into harm's way, we put our body armor on to protect us from people trying to do harm to us. And sometimes that armor comes in handy because we get hit, and it's okay because we have our armor on. Then we go back, we take our armor off, we hit the showers, we recover, we get ready to do it again, and then put our armor back on and go back into harm's way. Well, in life, if we get attacked, if we get hit more than a couple of times, we end up never taking our armor off, because this thing happens where we always feel like we're under attack. And it doesn't need to be like a physical attack. It can be an emotional, a psychological. It can just be a toxic relationship where someone is just constantly attacking you. And those are the worst because no one can see the pain and the attacks that are happening. I mean, pain is cumulative. If I were to tap you in the arm, for like an hour, you'd be like, that's kind of annoying. And after about 3 hours, there's going to be a big old bruise on your arm. I'm just barely tapping you on the arm. But it's that, and that's kind of the way that it happens to us, is that sort of tapping on the arm or on the leg or whatever. And just a gentle spring breeze hits your arm and you're like, oh my God, that hurts so bad. But it wasn't, if you look at isolated attacks, they don't seem that bad. But when you see this campaign of assault on someone, on your psychology, on your mentality, it carries a lot of weight. And people, myself included, we end up with all this baggage that we end up carrying around, and it's baggage that other people put on us. We end up never taking our ego off. We never take that armor off because we always feel like we're under assault, like we're always under attack. So the part of the Naked Warrior, how we can all be naked warriors, is we all have to, at some point, we have to figure out how to take that baggage off that other people are putting on us, baggage that we're putting on ourselves, take that armor and that ego off and set it in the corner so we can find some peace, find some rest, and find this ability to be exposed and be vulnerable so that we can find a healing that we actually need. Because if we don't ever take it off, we will never be healed, and we'll just get, it'll just weigh us down more and more. And those attacks on, someone tapping your arm will never, ever stop. So that's the two sides of the Naked Warrior.
I've had the opportunity and fortune of interviewing a bunch of people, and I can say that I've never had somebody that has their own company or part of a company that has that backstory of a name and what it means. So I appreciate you expanding on that. I have to ask you this because we ask each guest, and it's a little bit of a selfish reason, but I'm curious if you've read anything recently, or perhaps you're reading something that you'd like to recommend to our listeners.
I was just talking about a book yesterday that I was reading. Hold on. I recently read Tim Grover's book, not his new book, his old book,
Relentless,
where he was Relentless, which is a very good book. Very good book. I highly recommend it. I'm looking forward to his new book, but Think and Grow Rich. Fantastic book. I'm reading the newer version where it's it was written a super long time ago. And so now there's some newer injects of where it's more applicable to today's.
How is it so far?
It's very good. I'm about halfway through, And, really what it's talking about is mindset and how you are. There's, lots of different examples of like, really, it's like creating income and creating wealth in your own life. But really what it's saying is, if you want something, if you want to achieve something, you just have to desire it and like do this mental process of creating it in your mind. And the more you create it in your mind, the more real it will become. And therefore, but that works in both ways. If you have negative self-talk and negative, like a negative drive, and you're always stuck in the negative, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whatever you're thinking about the most is the thing that will happen to you. So, what we have to do is we have to think positively. We have to think about the things that we actually want to achieve, not the fears that are in our lives. And so I think that's really the best thing that you can pull out of that book.
I'm so glad that you just touched on that for a second, because I was just doing Instagram live earlier this morning, and we were talking about the exact same thing, is the positive perspective, believing something, but it's also the other side of that coin is if you only focusing on the negative and the glass is always half empty, you're always going to see it. You're always going to find it. But I really appreciate you touching on this. I'm actually really curious to get your answer to this question. I know that you know the famous Jim Rohn quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." If I could have you sit across any 5 people and have dinner and level up and learn from them, dead or alive, who would you pick?
That is a tough question. And, I always forget Jim Rohn's name because I bring this up a lot when I'm talking to people, and, and that was one of the things that helped me is I went out and found people who were out of the SEAL teams who I'd served with before, or, people who were really like the Navy SEALs in their industry, business coaches and things like that. They've never served a day in their life in the military, but, they are really the apex predator of the business world. And so, because I need to be surrounded by those people, because I like feed off their energy, I feed off their motivation and their desire and their, so that is a tough question. Can we pass on that, and I'll think about it while we're going through that, and I'll hopefully have a good answer for you in a minute.
The first time I have stumped a Navy SEAL. I like it. I get 2 extra credit points. So we're going to jump over then to what we call our hot seat questions. And the only request we have of you is you spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
I was not prepared for this. Maybe you're going to stump me again. You never know.
Last meal, you can pick absolutely anything. What do you pick?
Steak.
What is your favorite smell?
Steak.
Favorite sport?
Jiu-jitsu.
Do you have an all-time favorite team?
No.
Favorite movie?
Star Wars.
What is your all-time favorite book?
I'm going to go with Relentless.
Nice. What is your favorite app you have and use on your phone?
Favorite app? Mostly I don't like them because they suck up too much of my time. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I think most of them suck up just too much of my life.
What is the background picture on your phone?
My 3 kids.
Do you have an all-time favorite quote?
The man in the arena.
Do you have that one song, no matter whenever you hear it, you automatically turn it up and rock out to it?
I'm not great with, there's, I have a lot of those. And you know what? I'm the worst person. Like, I don't have like a good sports team. I don't have like, maybe that's why I like jiu-jitsu or MMA because there's not like a team, and I'm not that like the SEAL teams. That's my favorite team.
That team would probably beat almost every single team out there. So if I could be like the assistant coach there without having to go through buds or anything, I'll share my song, and a bunch of my close friends know, but no matter whether it's 4 a.m. going to the gym or 9 p.m. coming back from a meeting or something, anytime Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby is on, I automatically turn it up to like.
Absolutely.
So
you're showing your age there a little bit.
But it's a funny question, because a bunch of people that have shared just fun songs, but also just songs I wouldn't think. I'm like, really? I was like, that's okay. That's interesting. So
Charlie Daniels, The Devil Went Down to Georgia.
see, I would not have said that would have been your song. So I have to ask, and I'm intrigued by what your answer is. But during these challenging times, is there maybe one or two people that you'd like to recommend on social media that put out really good content or inspiring stuff that maybe our listeners should check out?
Let's see. I'll say these two people, they're connected. Because they were some of the people that have helped me. So number one, Ray Cash Care on Instagram. Ray is raw. He's also a SEAL. He was actually my mentor at my first SEAL team. He was kind of my sea daddy. Like, he's a very good storyteller, but he's very raw. He actually does every Saturday, I think he does 1,320 push-ups in an hour. So he does. So what he does, he started at 17, and then he moved it up to like 18, 19, 20, and now 21, and then now he's at 22. So 22 push-ups every minute on the minute. And what he does is he goes live and he brings people in to do push-ups with him. It's one of his things. He's got an apparel line and things like that. And he works for this. The second person that I'm going to say is Bedros Keuilian, who wrote the book Man Up. He is a business coach. He is a friend of mine. He runs a bunch of different things. He has a bunch of different companies. He's got supplements companies. He's got a company called The Project, which Ray is one of his employees there, where they take men who are kind of suffering in life and help level them up. So those are two people that that was kind of like, I consider Bedros like sort of the Navy SEAL in the business world of the business world. He's never served a day in his life. He actually wasn't allowed to go in the Marines because he had flat feet. And I may try to link up with them. They're doing some black ops thing here in the kind of the LA area while I'm here. Maybe not, we'll see. But those are two people that I would recommend people follow. And they've been a positive influence in my life.
No, I follow both of them. And speaking of Bedros, Man Up is a fantastic book. So for our listeners who
which is another very good book. I mean,
it's a fantastic book.
Very good book.
I think I underlined or highlighted almost one thing on almost every single page. If for our listeners that want to follow you or find out more about you, but also about Naked Warrior Recovery, what's the best way for them to do so?
I would say go to www.nw-recovery.com, or you can write in nakedwarriorrecovery.com is also works. But when I created that website, I didn't know if everyone, like after I created Naked Warrior Recovery, it was like, maybe not everyone wants to write naked into their search engine. So I made it to nw-recovery.com. Both of them will get you to the website. And then you could also follow me on Instagram at Naked Warrior Recovery.
To your point, I'm not encouraging any of our listeners, but I think it'd be interesting if you typed in Naked Warrior, what the searches would come back as. So
there's actually a Russian that beat me to it. So he's Pablo something. It's a kettlebell guy, and he owns the Naked Warrior domain. So I had to like find ways around that. But yeah.
But I think if you even in the search engine, if you just go to Google and Naked Warrior, I'm sure there'll be some interesting other
you can find
things
me.
that
you can find me in there. I'm trying to like take that over so you find me and not other stuff.
Well, it'd be good to find both. Have some fun along the way.
Right.
Last question I have for you is the same question I ask everybody: is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Yes. So the last part of the Naked Warrior, and it's sort of the moniker that I go by, the kind of the way to live your life, and is to get naked. And what I mean by that is get is an action word. Get is a verb. It means to take action. Naked is, again, I talked about earlier about taking off your ego and taking off that baggage that you're carrying around. But the other part of naked is sort of this, what I've kind of figured out over 26 years of service, of failures and some successes, and just mindset overall, is naked is actually an acronym, and it stands for, the N is for never quit. So, and I don't mean never quit smoking or drinking or doing drugs or porn or whatever else you have, whatever your vice is. Like those are things that if it's controlling you and you're not controlling it, then that's a vice and you should quit that. And maybe that's where you're going to do the never quit piece. But if you find something in your life that you felt like you wanted to take action and you wanted to have an impact and you wanted to complete it, doesn't matter if it's starting a business, starting getting your degree, a relationship, if it's a toxic relationship, get out of it. But if you want to make it better, if you want to, perform better at your job, it's going to take work. And sometimes that work, like for me, a lot of people think that becoming a Navy SEAL is this like unattainable goal. Really, it's about 1,000 teeny tiny goals all wrapped up into one. And I've heard, other people talk about, if I get to the end of this evolution, I'm not going to quit until I get to the end of this evolution, or I'm not going to quit until after the chow, or I'm not going to quit until after this day. I'll quit tomorrow. Like, just keep pushing that, that, yes, it's going to be hard. So, but you can make it, you can chop anything that is unattainable, a marathon, a Ironman triathlon. It's all chopped up into small pieces. It's chopped up into inches and feet and miles. So you can chop it up into one step at a time. So it doesn't matter what it is that you want to do or you think that you might want to achieve it, and it seems unattainable. It's absolutely attainable. All you have to do is chop it up into bite-sized chunks, and those chunks are different sizes for different people because we all have different appetites, and complete that chunk. Complete that thing, take it all the way to completion, and then take a break, and then do it again, and then do it again as many times as it takes. So the end is for never quit. Create these bite-sized chunks and keep going and never quit. The A is accept failure, because failure is the foundation of success. I cannot tell you how many failures I have in my life from, like I said earlier, about just trying to get to SEAL training. I failed the screening test twice, and it almost cost me becoming a Navy SEAL. That first one. And then I made bad mistakes, and I was hitting brick wall after brick wall, and it was failure and failure and failure until finally I went around, through, I don't even know what method I got through that wall, through that obstacle. But it was like, I just stacked the failures up and into a ladder, and then I hopped over the wall. So, and if you look at the greatest failures of all time, Henry Ford, I think he filed for bankruptcy 7 times before he started Ford Motor Company. I always forget this guy's name. The guy who invented the light bulb.
Thomas Edison.
Thomas Edison, thank you. I always want to say Eli Lilly, but that is not correct. Thomas Edison, he learned 10,000 ways to not create the incandescent light bulb. Michael Jordan has missed more than 3,000 shots in his career. Steve Jobs fired from Apple, the company he started, and then created, this like failure after failure. Elon Musk was fired as a CEO from the first company he started. So all these like icons of like success have a giant foundation of failure. So failure is the foundation for success. So accept failure, learn from it, and keep going. The K is to kill mediocrity. We get stuck in sort of a mediocre attitude, a mediocre life. And because we have to be comfortable, we're like, okay, that's good enough. And I'm certainly a victim of this, or I've had to learn from this. I graduated SEAL training, and I was like, okay, it's not going to be hard anymore. I was wrong. Like, SEAL training is easy compared to life in the SEAL teams, because it's not on a daily basis. Like, people aren't yelling at you and like, do this and do that. And like, you don't have to go out and get cold and wet and sandy. But, I've been more miserable. I've been more uncomfortable. I've been more scared. I've been more everything in real life than I have in SEAL training. SEAL training was fun. And it was, you always knew that there was an end. But part of some of my failures along the way in SEAL training is I was like, how hard can it be? I don't need to train. I don't need to go work out. I don't need to whatever. I was being mediocre. And that, again, almost cost me my SEAL career. So what I had to do eventually is I had to figure that out, and I had to kill the mediocrity in my own life in order to achieve the things that I've achieved. The E is expose your fears. So we all have fears. It doesn't matter who we are. We all have fears, and they're like, most of them are just, we don't want to talk about them. We don't want to accept that we're afraid of them or say that we're afraid. We let them like grow in this little space in the back of our brain, and we're not able to like, and when they're back there, they like kind of creep out sometimes, and they sort of take control of our mind, and they create stress and anxiety and fear and all these other things. And because that happens, our fears end up controlling us. They control our actions. They control our thoughts. But when you're able to like reach back there, even though you don't want to look at it, you don't want to accept it, you just have to like have the courage to like reach back there and grab those fears and pull them out. So a friend of mine and a business coach, Sharon Srivatsa, he says fear does not exist on paper. And so if you take those things that are bothering you and you take them with a pencil or a pen, not your computer or your phone, pencil or pen, and write them down on a piece of paper. And when you transcribe from your brain to your hand to that piece of paper, and you read those things that are bothering you, once you become brave enough to like write them down and expose them to like sunlight and expose them to like the world, you now control those fears. Your fears no longer control you. So you have to expose your fears. And the D is to do the work. All of this requires action. All of this requires work. It's not simple. It's not easy. You know, I have shirts that say, get naked. It's simple. It's simple. Just get naked. It's not an easy process. It's hard. It takes work, but it's simple. Just do it. So that's kind of like my closing of Get Naked. You know, everyone should just get out there and get naked. It's easy to remember. We all want to be naked, really. We want to look good naked. We want to be naked. We started the world naked. So just go out there and get naked. So never quit, accept failure, kill mediocrity, expose your fears, and do the work.
That is an awesome way to end today's episode. I truly, truly appreciate your time, and I know that we will definitely connect again soon.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to episode number 344. I've had the privilege of speaking to a couple of former Navy SEALs, and I'm always so appreciative of both their time as well as their service. Will shared some really key points with us today, and I hope you paid attention. And I would like to end today's episode by repeating Will's parting words. NAKED stands for N, never quit. A, accept failure. K, kill mediocrity. E, expose your fears. And D, do the work. I challenge yourself to repeat those words today. Repeat them tomorrow. And remember, we rise by lifting others up.
And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.